Lots of steering wheel here. Give me steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on. Whoa.
Your leg, my please. Your leg.
How the f*** is that possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? From the radio. The rest of the race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down that interstate.
I am so annoyed.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for Mayfair podcast number 891. Getting up there, getting close to 900. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
I mean, that's obvious, right? It's obvious. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover Formula One news, what you need to know about Formula One this week. But before doing that, I always have to introduce my co-host, and tonight I'm happy to say that I'm going all the way to the right coast of our nation, nestled in our nation's capital. She applies her skills as a master statistician and a genius in surveyology. Hope I get that word right. You know her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable. Grace, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what my diploma says. Surveyology.
Surveyology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Grace, it's been a minute.
It has been, and it'll be a minute again because we have a three in a row back to back. So you guys have got to like it. This is it for a while.
Soak it up.
That's right. Get ready.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of that Canadian Grand Prix, Grace?
I don't know. I was like, what happened? It seems so long ago. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I have this problem.
You were there. You were watching Ferrari. You're going,
Oh no, it all went wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's for sure. And it rained, and I don't, But no, all was well. But I always have that problem that I think, I don't need to write this down. I'll remember to bring this up.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm gonna remember.
Yeah, and that'll especially be necessary given 3 races before I'm on again. Then I'll be like, you remember 7 years ago?
Yeah, right.
When we were at the Spanish Grand Prix, when this funny thing happened that now nobody cares about because we've moved on.
Well, you had to be happy for McLaren.
Nice.
Always.
Yes.
I'm almost ready to believe. I'm almost ready.
So close to believing.
I know.
Yeah.
But both Lando and Oscar. So
I know, it's awesome. Hey, I'm a Ferrari fan. Everybody knows that, But I am elated for McLaren. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I even felt that way for Ferrari and Monaco, as exciting as that race was. But it was just like, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want Charles Leclerc?
Yeah, I mean, Monaco was
in Monaco. Yeah.
But it's Charles Leclerc,
Yeah. And I mean, just again, for the pure joy of the prince. Like usually they clear everybody out. He was
great.
I mean, that guy. Whew.
I was hoping that the prince would grab the wine bottle and do the whole bam like Lando does.
Or just pour it in his mouth first, like Kimi Räikkönen would do, right? Like I don't need you people. I'm just here for myself. So any of those things would have been fine. But
it would have been great.
Yeah. So Canada happened. It was wet, and yeah, good times.
I know. Well, it's good. All right. Well, I just thought I'd get your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. One of these days I'll be better prepared.
Did you get some 24-hour Le Mans watched?
I did. Speaking of rain and dogs and...
That was one of the more challenging Le Mans I can remember in recent memories. Maybe, as Tom, our friend, said, maybe 1999. But it with all the rain and intermittent and light rain and then heavier, but then dry, but then light, then heavy and dry, and the temperatures were all cold. The tires were difficult to get into their, the window, and then Paul's team flips their car on the roof, and it's just a difficult. But we'll get Paul's take on it when he gets back. I know he's disappointed, but I sent him a text and I said, look, I know that was rough, and Ian did a debrief, and he was a pro about the whole thing, of course. Yeah. And Paul, certainly disappointed, but he did have a good time, and so anyway, we'll get his take on it when he comes back next week.
Although I do love the advancement of streaming. Again, back in the olden days, even if you could find something like the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the United States to watch, it was like you had to stay up until 3 a.m. when it ended. Now, I could just watch it whenever, and then it would just hold my position, and then I could come back and watch another, hour or so of it, and then go do something else. So it was nice that I kind of didn't have to just sit there for, a day.
Yeah, I will say Motor Trend's broadcast this year here in the States was considerably better than last year.
Oh, that's good.
They had Ant Davidson on, Martin Haven, Graham. Yeah, the team did a good job. Their commercial cuts were pretty hard, but anyway.
I watched it on Max, so.
Oh, did
we
you?
Had, we had Alex
Max.
Brundle. Yeah, we had Max.
Oh, you had
so.
Alex. Oh, yeah, Alex is a good guy.
Yeah, so it was fun, and I think they had a nice balance of fun stories and which you'd have to do. I mean, again, it's like the world's longest baseball games in some stretches, right? So you have to have the ability to kind of talk about the teams and talk about things, but not make it sound well, you'll see there's 3 classes and they're all on the track at the same time, right? Like, you don't want to totally make it, that, but...
I did get a did you know it? Sometimes it can be running one part of LaSar than not the other. I did get that. So
yes,
I feel complete.
Do. I will refer to it from now on as the La Ardennes Forest, just because that's what it is at Le Mans. So
never mind. It's 2.5 hours away in Belgium, but
it's fine.
It's fine. It's just over the Maginot Line or north of it.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Geography. Europe's small. It's fine.
Europe's little.
I don't know.
I thought, well, I got to go. I work for a Belgian company, and I got to go to their Belgium in July. And I thought, I don't know, man, Brussels. I end up spending like 3.5 hours in customs at Brussels every time. I don't know why. I thought maybe I'll just go to Amsterdam. It was like Amsterdam. All my Belgian colleagues, and they're like, yeah, that's like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hour drive. And I was like,
I drive that in a day, man.
That's nothing for us over here. It's nothing.
Go to Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam.
Yeah, I'm not flown into Amsterdam. I've flown into Brussels too many times, and that just takes the stuffing out of you.
Yeah, I mean,
it's brutal.
I haven't been in a long time, but I assume that there's something for everybody there. Is what I felt.
Yeah, it's a toddling town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Grace, maybe you can answer this for me. I'm going to go on an old man rant, but, watched a full weather broadcast.
I was going to say, is it about the heat? Because I'm about over it and it's only day 1.
Oh, no, it's not about the heat, but it's close. Okay. So what is the deal lately?
Yeah.
I watched a weather broadcast, and they go through the entire weather broadcast and never tell you what the temperature is. All they tell you is the, quote, feels like temperature. Wow. I'm like... Did like 2 generations just not learn that if it's 98 degrees Fahrenheit and 82% humidity, it's going to feel like it's hot as hell? Did they not know that?
Well,
why do I need the feels like scary number? Just tell me the actual temperature. I'll do the math in my head.
Go outside today. It's hot. And hot. And it's just going to be like this for the next 20 days. This is great.
It's summer. It happens.
I don't know. It's June. I mean, even by DC standards, this is like real hot, real soon.
Yeah, you live in a swamp, though.
I'm just saying.
I don't mean that politically. I mean geographically, it was a swamp.
But it's not usually 20 days of what feels like 150 degrees outside.
We've actually had a very cool spring and summer so far. This week would be the warmest one. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, they're talking about weather. Get to the show!
This is the show!
I will say that I once heard a story of, people when they go to other countries, what they have to get used to about that country. And there was a woman from Nairobi, and she was like, I had to get used to the fact that Americans talk about the weather a lot. And Nairobi, the weather's... But the weather's the same every day. And so she was just like, everybody starts every conversation with, what do you think this weather is today? And she's like, that was so weird. I had to really get used to...
We do talk about the weather a lot.
How much people here talk about weather.
Maybe that's a leftover of our ag
maybe, but here it changes. We don't live in a place where the weather never really changes. If we lived in Hawaii, there wouldn't be anything to talk about as far as the weather went.
It's beautiful every day.
Correct.
Except for that mid-afternoon rain, and then it's gone.
And then it's great again.
Yeah, it's great again. Right.
Yeah. Wait your 10 minutes and it passes.
Right. Yeah. So, Australia, you say?
Yeah.
No, I know
Australia? I did.
No, I was saying hi to Gigi from Australia.
Oh, hey, nice. Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome, Gigi. Great to have you as always. In the early morning and the land down under, the great southern land. And hello to all of our Patreon supporters out there. We couldn't do this podcast, and a bunch of you have logged in to watch this podcast live. And you too can do that if you're a Patreon supporter. We get about a link, And admittedly, folks, I apologize. Today was real late in getting that link out to you guys, so I apologize for that. But anyway, you can join as part of the audience and get to watch this ad-free, and you can interact with us like Gigi and Sammy and Melton and everybody else is. And it's great to have you guys here, and really appreciate your support. So, and Gigi, let us know if what animal tried to kill you this morning already over your cup of coffee. Because every animal, insect, thing,
Spider
everything
about this
moving
big.
In Australia is out to kill you.
I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah. All right. We're going to jump into some Formula One news. How about we do that? Hey, Fabio, nice to see you. Let's jump into some Formula One news. First up, we're going to be talking about Kimi. Not Kimi version 1.0. This is Kimi version 2.0. And I know the purist among you are thinking, no, okay, wait a minute. There's only one Kimi. And I think Grace and I would agree with you on that.
I was very excited when I saw this headline. And then I read the next bullet point and I was like, oh.
Oh, that Kimi. Yeah.
It's going to continue to happen. It's going to take me a long time to get over that.
I know.
Ugh.
I know, because I don't think mentally any of us F1 fans are really fully done with Kimi.
No.
You
But
know?
I feel like they should retire his jersey up to the rafters. Like,
That's right. They should hoist it up to the rafters.
or like you have to change your name because there already is a Kimi. You have to pick a different name,
Yeah.
right? Like we can't have two Kimis. This is not okay.
Yeah, pick another name.
It's already taken.
Anyway. Well,
Yeah.
the big news this past week, if you didn't follow this, and I want to put this to you, I'm not weighing in as a Delphic oracle on this. I'm just curious what your folks' opinion is on this. Last week, the FIA updated their Appendix 1 of its International Sporting Code to say that although the super license required to drive in Formula One is 18-year-old, special dispensation may be granted to certain drivers to receive one at 17 years old. Now, this also had updated language about free practice, which basically said the same thing. So you could be 17 with special dispensation and drive in free practice or a race, right? Here's what it said. This is the updated language. It said, at the sole discretion of the FIA, a driver judged to have recently and consistently demonstrated outstanding ability and maturity in a single-seater Formula car competition may be granted a super license at the age of 17 years old, end quote.
Why do we have rules?
Right. So no mystery here, folks, that this whole thing was changed quickly and somewhat under the radar to allow Kimi Antonelli, because he is the driver tipped to take Lewis's seat at Mercedes in 2025. And Toto, in my mind, has clearly asked the FIA for special dispensation to allow that to happen. And so he could do some testing in free practice this season, right?
Right.
Even before the summer break. I think he turns 18 later this summer. But they would like that to happen. Now, there was some suggestion that the change meant that he could engage in these free practices this year. And there was even some rumors that he might replace Logan Sargent mid-season at Williams this year, although Williams, James Vowd, denies that.
Well, he can't.
He can't say,
course.
yeah, I'm ditching Logan.
Screw
Yeah,
that guy.
in about a month, I'm kicking him out. Yeah, he can't say that.
Is it July yet? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Logan.
Yeah.
Hey. Just avoid eye contact for at least 3
Right.
more weeks, right?
Right.
Just don't look at him. It's fine.
I know what you're talking about. Everything's fine,
We're
man.
great. How's it going?
Just trying to keep up the good work.
Yeah. Yay.
What did I see a stat? I don't even remember where it was. It was on Facebook somewhere, but or was it Twitter or X? I think it was. Somebody had the stat. So like Logan has been comprehensively beaten in qualifying 100% by Alex Albon, but yet Logan has outqualified Sergio Perez X amount of times.
Oh, man.
And it was like,
people.
oh, that stings. That is harsh. That is so harsh. Oh, that is tough now. Tough.
But I mean, would you rather, let's see, Logan Sargent or Lance Stroll?
Well, that's a different category. That is a different category.
I guess it is. I'm just saying, that's like,
Yeah.
does he pass the Lance Stroll test? No. Fancy boy.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
This rule about 18 is known as the Max Verstappen rule.
Correct.
After Max slipped under the radar and got into Formula One, they made a rule of 18. Said, no. You got to be 18 to drive. We can't have this race to the bottom.
It's nonsense.
This did you see Alexander Rossi's tweet?
I didn't, but this is good.
He said, quote, so there's exceptions. Exceptions can be made. And I can't blame him.
No.
You know, this is what he struggled with, right? Yes. At his age. And, you know, they established this. I guess, let me throw a couple things at you. And I'm looking at pros and cons here. If I'm Toto, I want Kimi in there and I get all that, okay? But let me just play con here for a minute and get your folks' thoughts on this. For an organization who has safety as their raison d'etre, I'm intrigued by their willingness to lower the bar even more when, say, Rossi was trying to get into the series, or Max joined, or even Kimi, the original Kimi 1.0, was getting in at a young age. Now, I'm not arguing that Toto doesn't have a better read on Kimi Antonelli than I do, and whether he's ready for F1. I mean, he would know a lot more than I would.
That's right.
But it does seem like a subjective slippery slope. And what I mean by that is, how does the FIA determine race worthiness and proper, cured, and baked racing skill for F1, apart from relying a lot on the team's own insistence that the driver is ready for prime time? You know, does the FIA do extensive testing, or, you know, how do they know?
Isn't this why we have super license? Like, you have to have so many points in so many series so you can get a super license so you can be in Formula One?
It is, and I think that's the answer. They're like, well, you know, if you've gained enough super license points, and that means you've been racing in junior Formula, and we've done the math, and we feel like if you get enough for a super license, then you're probably good enough.
You know, you've been in 80, IndyCar races, or 2... You know,
2 kart races in Europe.
Fine, we'll take you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about right. It's about right. You know,
it's not subjective at all.
2 karting in a Formula Renault race, and you're good in Europe. But it takes 80 IndyCar races to qualify.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I guess that to me is that's how you get rid of that subjectiveness, because even though, as we were just mocking, it's still subjective, but at least everybody has to follow those same subjective rules of what is an equivalent of a Formula One race, and how many of those equivalents do you have to have before you can qualify to be in the race. You can't trust the teams.
Yeah.
I get it that maybe age isn't the best qualifier, but then you knew that when you put the rule in place that this is bound to happen eventually.
Well, it kind of was. And if Toto asks Kimi to join and gets the all clear, then I'm thinking, okay, so what about Alpine asking some kid named Remy who seems quick and karting at 17?
I would just find every 17-year-old I could. If I was like Renault, you could afford to, you know, like, what the heck, why not? You know, just find, if you were any sort of mid-pack or lower team, just find the most qualified 17-year-old. Like, let's just push this rule as far as we can.
Yeah, I mean, you know, then you got sponsors and manufacturers, and they've got kids they're sponsoring, and they're behind, and there's going to be accusations of favoritism, nepotism, financial backing benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, it just seems a little bit like a slippery slope. I understand that Mercedes aren't ready to sign a 2-year deal with Carlos or someone else, and they have really high hopes for Kimi, and they should. Yeah. I think he is an exceptional talent. I don't want to get into a situation like Alpine, though. You know, they wouldn't want to get into a situation like Alpine where they lost Oscar, right? You know, so if they've got, a bird in hand in Kimi, they want to make sure they keep him, and they want to get him in a car as quick as possible. And now seems like the most opportune time, and surely Toto feels like he's ready. But my personal opinion is that, this is just me, but I feel like 17 is very young to be competing in F1. And while it's a case-by-case situation, surely every kid who is racing and is 17 feels that they're ready for F1, regardless if they are or not.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I would always worry, maybe this has to happen in Formula 1 too. I always worry about burnout too, right? Like, you always worry about getting kids into something too soon, or pushing somebody too soon into a thing, because they may get into it at 17 and like 22, they're like, I can't do this. I hate this. This is terrible, and not want to do it anymore, right? Like, so there's some balance there between because the circus is, the 2 hours they're on track is only part of their job. There's the whole week of circus that goes with it, the flying, the sponsors, all this other stuff that I think it takes a lot to be prepared for. And I don't know how much Formula One gets that in the lower series, that same level of preparedness, so that you really are getting into Formula One knowing as much you can and being as prepared as possible. Yeah,
there is a whole other side to being a Formula One driver apart from just the racing, but there's a maturity level and everything else that is involved in that. And you've seen them all go through it. You've seen Lewis when he joined. You saw Max when he joined. All the guys at Kimi when he joined. All these young guys that come in. Oscar's had a moment or two, but there's just there's a maturing process that there's a marked difference between a 17-year-old young driver and a 27-year-old driver. Yeah. There's just a difference, not just on track, but in mental preparedness and strength and all those things. And Red Bull is often accused of being really harsh on very young drivers. That they've chucked out young drivers at the nascent part of their career.
They check out all drivers at any part of their career.
Yeah, right. Right.
I also think the other side of it, right, is that Toto has to. If he doesn't do this now and get Kimi in that team next year, soon, the opportunities just don't come up, right? And so Toto may be like, oh, I wish he was a little older, but if you wait till he's 20, there may not be a seat for him. Yeah. And that's the other side of that, right? That's just the hard part of a sport like Formula One, is that, Lewis leaving and opening up Mercedes. Ask Ocon. Ocon he was like the golden child at Mercedes until he stopped being, Toto's golden boy, and some of that was just timing. There just wasn't, they kept farming Ocon out to other teams because there just wasn't a spot at Mercedes for him.
Yeah, there's no room at the end.
Now he'll never be there.
Yeah, right. Right. And I got nothing against Kimi, like I said. He has personal, a lot of talent. He's raced in F4, Formula Middle East, Formula Regional European. Now he's in F2. He skipped F3 completely. He's clearly an exceptional talent and most likely can handle this situation. But I also think the rules are set for a reason. And in aggregate, it's an age the series felt needed to be established in order to cover all drivers, not just exceptions, and that age was 18. And when you think about this, now you go back and you think of all the careers, Rossi, who was caught out by it, and others, their careers were altered because they were either altered, changed, delayed, or scuttled completely, because at the time that they were there, in 17, 18 years old, trying to get in Formula One, there was no room at the end, no seats, right? And so had they been able to join at 17, there was a seat open and interest open because, but they signed, it's just all timing. Of course, life is about timing, and I get that. But, I don't know. I'm curious what most of you folks think listening, but for me, I don't know. It seems awful young to me.
And I guess, my response to Alexander Rossi is I guess the padded envelope just wasn't padded enough when they wanted you into the sport. It's a lot more padded when Kimi wants to get in, right?
Yeah. It's a very padded envelope.
I just think that, I don't know. And then there's some part of me that's like, am I surprised by this? No. Not at all. It's Formula One, right?
No. Well, Kimi is Mercedes guy. I get it. And they want to get him in the seat. Seats open. I'm sure Carlos had no interest in signing a one-year deal. And, who else are they going to take when they've got George Russell? And George Russell's putting up some great races. And
that may be who loses out.
Yeah, it could be. But at the end of the day, George is your guy and Kimi is your young gun. And, it's a good learning experience. So, I get it. If I'm Toto, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think that, right? And like I said, he may have had the same conversation of some sort of is he ready? Is this the right move for him?
I'm sure.
But again, you can't really wait. But it'll be interesting to see how this works out for George. What if we have another, what if Kimi Antonelli is the next, Oscar Piastri, right? And it doesn't really have a rookie year, right? Like, what does that look like, right?
Right.
So I think that that makes for some interest. The Drive to Survive drama of Formula One gets very interesting when you don't bring in a veteran driver to Mercedes, but you bring in, the young hot, driver, and we'll see what he brings.
Yeah, we've seen that a few times, and it is always interesting. Lewis and Fernando at McLaren.
That didn't work out for Fred.
Yeah, you've seen a few times Sebastian at Red Bull, with Weber, and then
that didn't work out well either.
And then Dan with Sebastian, and then Dan with Max, right?
Dan with everybody, really.
Dan with everybody.
Ricciardo.
Yeah, that's tough. And at some level, George with Lewis at Mercedes.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see, George.
We'll see. Watch the space. Keep your eye on it. It's hard to say. All right, let's jump into the next topic, and it's a topic most of you love talking about most in Formula One, and that's tires.
Yes, that's why it's our second story.
Yes, I know we're talking about tires. But I brought it up because actually I found it interesting.
Okay.
And I'm hoping you do too. Last week, the FIA released their proposed 2026 regulations.
Correct.
And they've been met with mixed reviews. And it caught the teams off guard. They didn't know they were going to do it. And so there's been a lot of discussion going back and forth. Why don't we wait till October? And Toto's like, no, we're not waiting till October to release those things, no. And there's been all kinds of, well, wait a minute, the engine regulations, we haven't, we're set on that because that, and then the FIA said, well, we released these with the understanding that they need to be tweaked and, fine-tuned.
I just think all of that is it either is or it isn't.
Yep.
Right? Like, what is...
Either you're the regulatory body or you're not.
Right. And so I also think, it's the 26 regulations. I mean, I get it. They can't work on it like not on anything electronic yet. But
they can't work on chassis aero. They have been working on the engines. But,
Right. But, you could be thinking on it on some paper, right? Like, it just seems to me that, I don't know, in my job, if somebody said this needs to be done in 26, I would want to talk about it as soon as possible. And I'm not running a Formula One car operation over here.
I mean, you're not going to fire up the autoclaves back there and start, fashioning wings. But yes.
Somebody's drawing, somebody's got some clay going.
Somebody's got some crayons out. It just, we're halfway through 24. What do you mean you're still... we're still noodling on 26. What do you mean you're still noodling on 26? Again, that makes me nervous, and I'm not running a Formula One team. Right. Well, some teams say it's late to make any changes to the engines, while others say it isn't regarding power demand from the ERS. You asked for miracles, I give you the ERS versus the ICE. The internal combustion engine. Teams have been working on this 50-50 split in power deployment for a year or two now, and they say this would, be akin to trying to change horses midstream. And some teams like Red Bull say it's not. The other thing I found interesting is the talk of wheel size and tires. Now, it was just a couple of years ago, remember, folks, that F1 finally, after years of running on a 13-inch tire or wheel, they finally moved to an 18-inch wheel design. But now there was all this talk about the 2026 regulation and going back down in size to a 16-inch. And Pirelli have decided to make these tires a little smaller, width-wise, for the 2026 regulation. So they thought, well, if you're going to make the tires a little smaller, then make the wheels 16-inch and yada, yada, yada. Pirelli agreed to reduce the front tire width by 25 millimeters and the rear tire width by 30 millimeters. But in an article over at Auto Sport, they don't think it will be a huge reduction in mechanical grip. And this is what they said. They said, quote, we are not expecting significant difference from the changes being done on the tires with respect to general mechanical grip. It might be a slight reduction because the tires are smaller, but it's not a departure which is a source of real concern to us, end quote. Oh, and he continues, we don't want the tires to be a source of concern early 2026. And with these new power units, which in the traction phase will have a massive amount of power, we simply were a little bit nervous of going to a much smaller one. The reduction of tires is certainly less than we would have all hoped, but we didn't want too big a departure from the known product, which currently we have and are fairly happy with. Now, while some teams would like a smaller wheel, Pirelli said they aren't convinced. And this is what they said about the 16-inch wheel. They said, with the 16-inch tires, we were worried about the load capacity of the tire, as well as the possibility to increase the overheating quite a lot. We did some simulations, and we made a proposal to stay on the 18-inch tires, which was accepted, end quote.
All right.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Cars are going to be putting a hell of a lot of load in those tires. They're lighter, faster cars, that kind of thing. And if you're going to make them less wide, then you're already going to reduce the contact patch. And you could see where, that may have an impact on grip, potentially heat. But then if you go to a smaller tire, that is easier to heat the entire tire up a lot easier than an 18-inch tire. And so, it makes you wonder, or a tire for an 18-inch wheel. It makes you wonder. And so they pushed back against 16 and said, no. The other interesting challenge, so if you think about this, folks, the other interesting challenge for Pirelli is the timeline of development. As they tested, they may test initial compounds in September, but remember, those are going to be mule cars, not the 2026 spec or weight or power. It's going to be really tough to harvest any fine-tuned data sets, and that's going to leave them to do a tremendous amount of heavy lifting within like 12 months. And if you really think about that brand new specification, we're making narrower tires, brand new cars, brand new performance metrics. The data isn't there. How do we do this? How do we get some preseason testing in on these tires so we can make sure that we hit the first race in 2026 and we don't become a bad talking point?
I think that, again, 12 months is a tight time frame to do just about anything.
It is.
In actuality. So I'm I just think that, that's one of those things like, how hard could that be? Right. But they have no margin for mucking it up is the other thing too, right? So I don't know. It just doesn't seem like enough time. I don't understand how this is, we're fine. We haven't decided yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. There are manufacturers and industries that, the company I work for, there's one particular branch of the company that makes a product for live events, concerts, like Taylor Swift concerts and all that. And imagine, if you will, those products are deployed in can't fail events.
Right.
Can't fail. Can't. Right? That is a hell of a lot more pressure than putting out something 1 year warranty, fails, send it to service, we'll take a look at it, right? Whole different deal. Pirelli, very much like I just described, these are can't fail events.
Right.
Look at Indy 2005. Can't fail, and they did. Look at the backlash then, and that was before the interweb was canceling everybody right, left, and center.
Well, I think they're always, it's where the rubber meets the road, right? Like, they're always going to be...
That's a good pun.
Oh, thank you. They're always going to be the ones that carry that burden, right? Like, nobody's like, it's the MKUGHIK, and that's what's the problem. No, it's the tires, right? Like, so I think that they carry... I guess they're used to it by now that they've been the sole tire supplier for a moment or two.
Yeah.
That, they're kind of had to have developed some thick skin around the idea that everything is their fault, even though they're just doing what they were told to do.
Right.
And here they are behind the 8-ball again, and they're just trying to do what's being told to them when it's told to them, even though they're like, what? I thought you said, I like this. This is being a meeting. Wait, excuse me, Mr. Isola, I thought you said 26. I was thinking you were going to say 28. Did you misspeak? No, I said 26. I meant 26. Oh, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. It just seems
It's true.
Seems nuts. All
Yeah,
of
I
it.
don't know. It'll be interesting to see how well they do in that 12-month cycle of development, and then what they produce for that first race, and or really those first tests will be critical to see how those tires perform. But
Great.
I'm sure they'll be fine if they're the same size. They're just narrower. That'll change grip levels. I think maybe they're hoping they could open that operating window up a little bit, and I don't know. I think that would improve the racing, to be honest with you. But what do I know? I don't make tires for a living.
I don't either, but I think the fact that the teams are still involved, like, I don't know. Like, that's never
There's
good,
times
right?
there's time you miss Max days when he just tells his teams
Enough.
to shut up and sit down.
Right.
We're the regulatory body. We'll take it from here. You shut up and sit down.
Yes, right. So that I guess that's the thing too, is that like we're still getting feedback. That's great. That's not where you want to be at this point, right? You want to have like a finished product, and you're talking about things, not like, oh, we're still brainstorming ideas and taking feedback from the client. Oh no, that's I don't know.
I know. It's tough.
Makes me nervous, but again, I'm not the professional, so I'm sure.
Makes me nervous too. All right. Well, let's talk about the Ukester, shall we?
Oh, I love me some Yuki.
One Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda, if you guys recall last week, it was announced that he had a contract extension at RB, VCarb, Visa, Cash App, Red Bull last week, and that's great for Yuki. And to be honest with you, he's really improved this year, and there's a lot of people that rate him as like the most improved driver of the year so far. Many fans say he's like by far, I think the most improved, or one of the best drivers as far as progression and everything else, and what he's delivering in that car this year. So, and all with good cause. And I certainly understand the accolades. It's been a rocky start for Yuki. It started out as F-bombs and absolutely berating his team. And then finally, somebody pulled him over to the side by his ear and told him to shut up and sit down and drive.
Franz toasted.
Yeah, Frost did, yes. And the same, but, look, everybody has a rocky start at some point. They'll have their ups and downs. Max did, remember him? He had a lot of comings together.
I can't forget him, unfortunately. I do remember that from Canada.
Takes a while to hone their skills, and Yuki is performing at a much higher level this year than he was last. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah,
He's
absolutely.
really progressed.
Yeah.
Super happy for him. This leaves me wondering a little bit about one Daniel Ricciardo. And will the team retain his seat? Will he retain his seat at RB? And of course, JV doesn't think so, but that's JV. If it were me, I would have replaced both of them. But that's just me.
They won't replace Ricciardo because somebody has to do all Max's press events.
He does get along with Max really well.
Well, and Max hates all that stuff, so.
He does hate all that stuff.
Who's going to do all the fun videos?
Yuki doesn't like doing it.
Yuki would only like doing it with Pierre Gasly. That would be fine. Bring Pierre Gasly to VCarb. That would be lovely.
Bring him back.
Oh.
Sign up Esteban. Why not? What do you got to lose?
It's like Carlando.
I liked how Alpine this week had a headline I read about Alpine that said the next driver to replace Esteban, they're really looking for a level of, quote, professionalism. I mean, what a backhanded exit, right?
I know. Not like that
Suggesting
guy.
that Esteban wasn't professional. Ouch. Zing.
Yeah.
But anyway, if it was me, I would replace both. But, recall... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, on top of the fact, you're Alpine. You know what I mean? It would be one thing if Red Bull or Ferrari maybe said that. Fine. But you suck. Your whole team sucks. You've sucked for the last 15 years you've been in this sport. You haven't had any success since Fernando Alonso. I don't think you have any space to be slamming anybody there,
What's
buddies.
going on over there? Both their Le Mans cars were out.
That's hysteria.
I mean, it's just...
I did ask you if they took each other out. Like, that seemed to be...
I said, no, yeah, fortunately, Esteban wasn't driving well.
Yeah, right. Like,
No, they didn't take each other out.
I'm joining late. I see that one of the Alpine cars is out.
Yeah. But you did see the one car punted, and then you heard who was driving it.
That's strange. I wonder what's causing all the accidents.
Yeah, it was Pastor.
I love that guy. They should bring him back to Formula One.
Why not? Why not?
Just to spice it, you know what? We'll just randomly put him in a car each race. Just like, it's like a wild card or something.
It should be like all teams go in a hat and they pick 6 weekends. Instead of sprint races, what they should do is pick 6 weekends.
You get faster.
And what they do is put all the teams in a hat and they pull out a name and say, okay, at least I'm not going to make your number 1 driver sit out, but your number 2 driver seat has to go to Pastor Maldonado.
I love it.
You're getting him for this weekend.
That would be great. Stefano Domenicali, I know you listen.
Yeah,
I'm going to get close to the camera. I know you listen to this. It's a good idea. We'll all know in our hearts that we took credit for it. And you don't even have to say it out loud. That's going to be all yours. This is a great idea. You should do something about it.
Right. Yeah, I would replace both. Recall, and here's my thinking. Recall that the team said that they are pushing forward and they're not going to simply be the junior team of Red Bull anymore.
But you are.
If that's the case, then you're looking for podiums. And surely a guy like Carlos should be your target then, as well as Esteban. I mean, these two are at least delivering at a higher level. And I'd probably go for a veteran like Carlos, although many have him going to Williams. But you get my point. And a young up-and-coming talent. But I've already seen enough of Dan and Yuki. I already know. And if I want to be RB and I want to be fighting Red Bull for podiums, then you got to up your driver game at this point.
If you have to say, we don't want to be their B team anymore, you're the
B team. Right.
You're the B team.
Oh, they got to wake up in the morning with that, Grace.
I'm sure the paycheck doesn't hurt that.
Well, no.
You know, right?
Yeah, the paycheck, as long as they don't bounce.
I guess. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I just think that, good idea, but you are the B team and you just own it. Be fine with that.
And what's the deal with Red Bull's junior program these days? Has Helmut said
goodbye, good luck, and good riddance?
Has he said that too many times to too many junior? Because Honda's leaving. They're going to Aston Martin. So having Yuki around to nurse your Honda involvement, those days are over. So Honda's gone, and you're going to use a Red Bull engine. So having Yuki, you're not doing it unless Honda said, well, you keep Yuki and we'll pay you $20 million. Well, okay, maybe you do. But, I don't know. Does Red Bull Junior program, do they have any hot up-and-coming talent? I mean, come on, man. I
mean, I guess usually they have too many hot up-and-coming talent is their problem.
Usually that was what the deal was.
It was like 20 young Red Bull drivers.
Yeah, they had 30 drivers under 17 all ready to go, but couldn't get a super license, and they were all excellent.
Envelope wasn't padded enough.
Yeah, that's right. Toto didn't call and ask.
Toto knows what he's doing.
Toto walks in the FIA, and like the Red Sea, it just parts for Toto.
I just know, right? I mean, I think that's... Would I get rid of both? No, all right, so I'm a Yuki fan, so I would not have gotten rid of Yuki.
I know you're a Yuki fan. Yeah, you love it.
As the sole pro Yuki TBF,
I don't dislike Yuki. I like Yuki. I think he's doing a great job this year. It's just I've seen him enough, and I kind of feel like if you're going to raise the game, then go after the top talent.
They're not, and then they can't get rid of Ricciardo, so because Red Bull won't let them.
Well, let's talk about Dan, shall we?
Oh, let's do it.
In Canada, Sky Sports F1 thought it would be a great idea to have Jacques Villeneuve,
because Danica Patrick wasn't enough.
Well, that wasn't enough.
Jacques Villeneuve to this whole shindig.
Well, see, you had America and Canada covered with that lineup.
Oh boy! See? I just wish Jenson Button was there so he could just roll his eyes even more.
Oh, he was over at Le Mans getting ready for.
I understand that, but it's like the parent to the kid. If you roll your eyes, one of these days you're going to get stuck like that. That's Jenson Button anytime he has to co-host with Danica Patrick. So imagine him and Danica and JV.
That would have been hilarious.
Oh, man. He would not be able to keep a straight face. It would be great.
Well, JV, while he was live on air and they started talking about Daniel, he said, why is he still in F1? We're hearing the same thing for the last 5 years. We have to make the car better for him. Poor him. No, you're in F1. Maybe you make that effort for Lewis Hamilton, who has won multiple championships. You don't make that effort for a driver that can't cut it. If you can't cut it, go home. There'll be someone else to take your place, end quote.
Yeah.
Zing!
Yeah, and you really should listen to the original, because as much as I love you reading things to me, it's some of JV's delivery is really his, like,
Yeah.
the real vitriol that just comes with everything he says when he comes up with these, like, hard, hot takes. I mean, maybe I would agree with some of I was just saying that, right? Like the Red Bull, there is some appeal to the fact that Ricciardo will do all the, the pressers and the unboxed videos and all the things that Max doesn't want to do.
Yeah, right.
And for sure, that is a part of it. I mean, that happens in every sport, right? And so, and you need that. You need somebody in a sport like this where sponsors are so important that can successfully press the flesh and everybody loves them, right? So there is some part of that. But when he was just like, he can't hack it, I'm like, whoa. Like, I'm no, like, stats guru over here when it comes to this kind of stuff. But that seems a little harsh. And of course now as it's trickled out, people have like actually gone, well, actually Ricciardo has done this and he's done that, and it's like, right? I mean, it was a little
he's won in Monaco.
Harsh.
He's not a chump. He's a hell of a race car driver.
I mean, he made him sound like we were talking about, I don't know. I'll just say Logan Sargent. I don't know. He made it sound like we were talking about somebody that
Scott
really.
Speed.
Oh, Scoot. Very good. He made it sound like we were
Speed.
talking about Scoot here, and that just wasn't the case. I just think. I was just like, where have you been
won?
sleeping?
8 races or something? I mean, he's, I made this argument one time. People say, oh my gosh, Ralph Schumacher, what a waste of space. I don't know. The guy won a hell of a lot of races. He won several races, just like Dan has. And look, if you're not a professional race car driver, listen to this podcast. I guarantee you Dan would kick all of our butts in a race.
Oh, I mean, that's
down.
not really right.
Hands
of course.
down. He's a hell of a race car driver. I agree, and I'm kind of with Martin Brundle on this. Mm-hmm. There's something in the psyche that isn't firing for him. And I
think
don't
that's
know
been
what
true.
it is, but there's something. I think maybe Dan's kind of got into his own head, right? Martin says leaving Red Bull is the worst mistake, and whoever gave him that advice, that was a bad move. He should have stayed there and taken the fight to Max. But
I think that's only within hindsight to be able to say that.
It is clarity of 2020 in hindsight.
Because he was for sure personally miserable. And as someone who's worked at 6 different agencies in like 23 years, there's something to be said to the fact that these people are trying to kill me and maybe I don't want to work here anymore. And so there's only ever so many seats in Formula One, and so maybe Renault wasn't the one you should go with, but, Sarah Whipple is a pretty convincing guy, and off you went, and that did kind of sink your career. But I'm sure, I think McLaren is really what sunk him. Nobody expected him to sink like a rock like he did at McLaren. We all were like, oh, well, it's Renault. What were you expecting? But
right. And then
I think
McLaren,
it's the McLaren years, I think, have really...
and it was tough because he had that win at Monza, right? And then all of a sudden it was just back off the cliff.
It's like one high and everything else was a low, which, you kind of... I mean, maybe it's better to be a little more middle and have a peak or have a valley as opposed to just one win and like barely finishing the other races in comparison to your teammate. I just think that's I don't know.
I think Dan Dan said this, quote, I still don't know what he said, but I heard he's talking shit. But he always does. I think he's hit his head a few many times. So I don't know if he plays ice hockey or something. I won't give him the time of the day, but all those people can suck it.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. I mean, JV is in all his JV-ness. And I just think...
JV has always been an acerbic tongue his entire career. He's always said the difficult things. He was the pre-Kimi, before Kimi. And he said things that didn't make the FIA happy. And he was just very blunt, very cutting with his words. And he's always been that way.
Except Kimi's isn't personal. In the same, like, he's not... He doesn't stab people with his words in the way that JV does. Kimi's just like, this is stupid.
Right.
Well, okay, that's fine. You can feel it's stupid. You weren't saying, like, I think Stefano Domenicali doesn't know what he's doing and he's full of shit and he shouldn't be doing this job. And, like, that's very personal. That's very different than, I don't really want to stand here for the national anthem. This is stupid, right? Like, I could be doing something else, right? And in that sense, yes, Kimi is also very forthcoming with his opinions, but it just wasn't as hot takey as JV always is. And how many people, that was their first experience with JV and all JV-ness? Like,
I know.
I was like, oh. And then
you're right. There's probably a whole generation of F1 fans out there that hadn't seen JV really.
Yeah, in real life. And
I lived through all of his IndyCar days and championships, so I was pretty aware of what they were getting, I just thought, like, the shocked look on, like, Karun and Rachel's face, like, what? Yeah.
What? Like,
I know. And over on F1 TV, Ruth Buscom, and it's like,
yeah, right? Like, awkward commercial break. Like, what? That doesn't
cut.
Yeah,
go to commercial. So
there seems to be a problem with your mic, JV. I don't. I don't. Karun like smacks it out of his hand. I don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah. So it was a little weird. I don't know. There's some people saying, well, honestly, JV just said the thing we're all thinking out loud, and and he did bring up, he said, everybody's all excited. He was beating Sebastian. He goes, Sebastian Vettel was chucked out. He was already signed for Ferrari. He was head one in the game, and then Max come along and beats the hell out of Dan, and he can't hang it, and so then he leaves to go to Renault because he can't hack it with Max, so. He kind of said that, and then the people that don't like Dan were saying that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like Dan.
I do too, but I think if we took like what JV said in like a 300-foot one pager or something, I probably agree with what he said. It's just the way he said it, and he made it so personal, and he made it as if Dan's done nothing, and that's not true either. It's
not true. Yeah.
His personality doesn't hurt. Right? Like if he was we all love Kimi Räikkönen, but he was not a fun personality. He's not who I'd want at my like sponsor presser event, right? That's Kimi Räikkönen's personality doesn't do that. Of course that helps. I think that going to MotoGP, maybe that's half of what Jack Miller's appeal is. He's good at developing a bike and he's fun.
Yeah.
That's great. Every time they ask a driver, if you could go out drinking with somebody, Jack Miller, like there's not even a hesitation. There is something to that, I think that you have to be well-rounded as a personality.
It's not just about on track.
Yeah, right. So it's not necessarily, I think that if it was just his delivery was so awful. Yeah. It was so awful.
I think for me, Dan, somebody's going to answer this big question for Dan, unfortunately, because I think in the end, really, Dan is the one guy who could answer this question, whether Martin's right, if there's just a part of his psyche that is just really struggling to get into the 10/10th zone in F1 again. I've argued in the past that maybe it's just he's struggled ever since these new car regulations came out in 2014 with the hybrids. He just has. The whole drive-by-wire and brake-by-wire and ERS and all that. He's just struggled ever since those came out. Now, that, I'm not suggesting that is the cause, because that's connecting dots and it may just be coincidence. But there's a part of me that thinks, Dan, if I'm Dan, I'm going to ride the F1 wave as long as I possibly can.
Of course, you have to.
Because the money's great, and I'm going to ride it as long as I can.
And if you're out, you're not getting back in.
And you're out, you're not getting back in. But I would think that if I'm Dan, it might be worth having conversations, and I'm sure he is, about WEC and racing sports cars, because who knows? That may be the kind of thing that jumpstarts that psyche, as Martin was suggesting, that kind of gets him reinvigorated about racing. And it's happened to other Formula One drivers. There was 18 F1 drivers in the Le Mans grid this year, and look at the success of Sebastian Buemi and Giovinazzi, and there's several over there. JB was over there. And so I think there is life after F1 for Dan, and I hope he's kind of working out Dan version 2. 2.0. Yeah.
I just think there is, people see that as a failing, right? But I think we want to believe as fans that somehow these are superhumans that are different than us. That's how we treat all athletes.
Yeah.
And they're not. Haven't we all been in that place in a job where you're just like, I can't work on this project anymore? It's burnout, right? You just lose all.
You get burnout.
You lose all ability, and you have to try to find something that reinvigorates you. Why you got into this, profession, or why you're doing this thing, or why this was once important to you, and either try to find that again, or you have to move on to something else. I just think they are humans, but I do think that. I can't imagine what that's like. I remember, 20 podcasts ago, I was talking about the interview that Jake Humphreys did with Fernando Alonso, where he was like, how does it feel to have not won 90% of the races you entered into? What was a jerk question? And I would have been like, I don't know, Jake Humphrey, what is it like to be a reject doing a podcast now, right? But anyway, you used to be on BBC, but now you're just doing a podcast. But he didn't, and it's just the way of that sport. And I just think that must be so hard that you could have the best career you could possibly have and still never win a race. That's nuts, right?
Yeah, it is.
What does it mean to be a good Formula One driver? So I hope he figures it out. It would be great, I agree, if he could figure it out while still in Formula One.
Me too.
So that he doesn't have to go to WEC or something like that to get that back. But that may be his future. I mean, just like I think with Jack Miller, there's been talk about him going to Superbike. I think that would be great. I'd love to watch Jack Miller in Superbike. So, maybe there's some space for that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do some Albin's Cats, shall we? I always like Albin's Cats. Albin's Cats is where we get to talk about random stuff about Formula One because it's funny, like Albin's Cats.
Right.
Speaking of cat, what time?
Right on cue. Good
it was
job.
totally on cue.
Good job, Levi.
For those watching this podcast on YouTube.
Levi just joined us.
Levi just hops up, says, yo, yo. You know what Levi's saying?
But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
I'm convinced. My cats, I have 2 cats, they would kill me. They would have already killed me if I didn't have an opposable thumb and could open the cat food. Otherwise, I'd be dead.
That's right. Especially Enzo.
Yeah, especially Enzo. He's a neck breaker.
Yeah, he's got that look in his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Levi. Levi's just like, see, now is when we're downstairs and you're supposed to be watching basketball and snuggling me so I can sleep. This is not where you're supposed to be right now. What is this?
He's like, all right, wrap it up. Wrap it up.
We're done with this. Whatever. I got things to do tonight. But so Albon's Cats. I like that you said random things about Formula One because I'm actually going to talk about random things in MotoGP because
even better.
What? Another rage quit happened while you were all like off watching Canada. Like this 3 weeks, we all talk about like Alonso and Oscar Piastri as being like the off, the summer break that was like, and things just kept getting crazier. I don't know. This is like the craziest 3 weeks of MotoGP rider, signings ever. Like Maverick. So we talked a couple weeks ago, right, about Jorge Martin. Rage quitted Ducati, went to Aprilia like the last minute. It was so late. They had already packed their printer. They had to find somebody that sold a printer at Mugello so that they could put out the contract and he could sign it. Well, apparently nobody told his potential teammate, Maverick Vinales, and he found out the same way we all did via the media. Like, that's not great. So, I mean, could you imagine you're like Fernando Alonso and they signed somebody other than Lance Stroll and you found out the next day on Twitter, which is the same way the rest of us found out? I think you'd be a little mad, right?
Yeah.
So Maverick Vinales went to KTM. He went to their satellite KTM team with Bastianini, who Jorge Martin was trying to take, but Marc Marquez took his seat. So they're all at KTM now. So again, that's probably a nail in the coffin for Jack Miller. But it was just like, this rage quitting. This is great. I'm telling you, people.
So funny.
I hope they do. I mean, they've been talking about doing they tried to do it like a Drive to Survive for MotoGP. It didn't really have the same pizzazz as Drive to Survive does. But I hope somebody is paying attention to this year because this season's just writing itself.
Yeah,
so
it has. It's been crazy.
Again, and we still have 7 seats left to fill. There's still a lot of space. And then and then everybody keeps talking about who's going to be the second Honda driver. And it's like, rider, sorry. Like, please, nobody. Like, they were like, well, Jack Miller could go to Honda. No, the bike is trying to kill them.
Yeah, right.
Jan Mir is like, I will not be at Honda. They're trying to kill him. So we don't know who's going to be Martin's teammate yet. That hasn't come out. I'm sure that'll happen here before we get to Assen, I think is the next MotoGP race. But
yes, it is Assen.
There you go, Assen. Woo, right off the top of my head. So we'll see. We'll see if we find that out, or if Aleix just decides I'm not retiring because his dream is to race with Martin. Would that surprise anybody? No.
Right. That would be fun.
Just like maybe this is Aleix playing the long game, right?
Yeah, right. He was out thinking it. He's like 3D chess with Spock.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Never doubt Aleix. I mean, this is his plan all along, and so now he'll get to be at his super dream team with Jorge Martin. Who knows? But keep watching this space because this season's riders has just been like out of control.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And again, this was like an unattended 3-week break that wasn't supposed to happen. We haven't even had their actual summer break yet. There's still more craziness that could happen. So it's good times. We'll see how that goes.
Watch this space.
And one more thing, in case you want to never be able to sleep again, I have to know, therefore you. That's where this goes. This is not Albon's Cats. This goes under if I have to know, you also have to know. If you are bored and you think, what sounds horrifying? I want you all to just, after you finish this show, and if you're driving, pull over to a safe place and then look this up. Look up human brain organoids. What? They're it's crazy. It is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And they're like, they take, I don't have the science for this, but they take human brain stem cells and it makes little brains. And the only reason they haven't taken over is because they don't have like circulatory systems. And they've just developed eyes. And it was just like, this is it. The Cylons are actually going to be human brain organoids. That's what's taken us over. So I don't know what you're worried about, but this is it now. So if I have to know and I have to lose sleep over this, it is super creepy. It's fascinating. That's the thing. I was like, I've never seen
a whole
something.
new dimension in gain of function research.
Right. I was like, never have I been so fascinated and so afraid at the same time.
That's right. It's so wrong.
So I'm just saying, look it up. The organoids, they're coming for all of us. All right.
Oh, boy. All right.
That's good. You'll never sleep again.
I haven't even seen it, and I don't want to watch it.
Staring into the void. It's great.
I get, I don't know. Just the thought of watching that just makes me repulse.
Yeah.
It's about like trying to watch a Kardashians episode. It's like, what?
Well, technically, they have a circulatory system, though, so they'll keep on living.
Yeah, right. Well, there's that. There's the upside. Let's see. All right, you ready for some no-shit headlines?
Sure.
Let's see. Number one up, quote, F1 star wants investigation into unhealthy problem as fears raised before Spanish Grand Prix.
Well, that could be anything. I would click on that. That would be, I really want to know.
Well, I did because I thought, what? Okay, let me read this again.
Okay.
F1 star wants investigation into unhealthy problem as fears raised before Spanish Grand Prix. What is that about? It's about Nico Hülkenberg saying that he doesn't think his car or his chassis is fully healthy and wants the team to take a look at it before they get to Spain.
I'm so disappointed.
That is like the worst.
Somebody got a big padded envelope for writing that story and coming up with that headline. That is so
might be
disappointing.
The ultimate in clickbait. Oh my gosh.
I for sure thought somebody had an eating disorder, mental health concern.
A mental health concern, something.
Hulkenberg has a crap car. Well, no crap. Do you see who he's racing for? Yeah. What? I'm surprised by that.
Unbelievable.
For as many of these no shit headlines as you've done, that one is by far the greatest / worst.
I agree. I think that one takes the cake. That is like the worst clickbait ever.
This may be the Hulkenberg Award now.
Yeah, it's the Hulkenberg Award. Yeah.
Gosh.
My next one, Le Mans horror crash as car smashes into barrier at 70 miles an hour while upside down. That was Paul's team.
Yeah.
I sent him the link. I said, oh, crap, you made the front page of the Express. I'm sorry.
That's not what he wanted. Yeah.
It wasn't. I know. Paul, I know. I think Paul's unhappy with me. I was trying to cheer him up, but I think maybe I put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah.
Probably pissed him off. Sorry, Paul. I was just trying to keep it light, a little levity in your life.
Hey, what about, you should have been like, hey, did you meet Valentino Rossi while you were there?
I think I did ask him that. Or we did talk about Rossi. Right. He took a picture of Rossi's trailer. It was like loud as Valley is. Right?
I'm sure, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
I totally would have been like, you know, like, because we were in Austin, I just took, like, every time we'd see somebody famous, I just would, like, take selfies. I was like, and then because you have to do it quickly. So I'm like, flip, quick, that guy, right? Like, and take some selfie. And then I'd have to explain to him who that guy is, right? So that's what I would have had to do. I'd be like, oh, wait, there's Valley. Hold on. We're friends now.
Yeah. And then finally, my last note, this one, Valtteri Bottas torn apart and told to work in the circus with future uncertain.
What?
I read that as
like,
what?
I was thinking like they ripped his arms off, like torn apart, not like emotionally torn up.
I thought it was like, Gordon Ramsay in a bike accident or something. I didn't know, what? So I had to read this one. It actually is a pretty scathing review. It's former motor racing boss Franz Fischer. And he was saying that Valtteri needs to stop or go work in a circus with Ricciardo because the whole humor, funny stuff, that is not what people want. That's not F1. What he's doing is not being in Formula One. And he drives like a newspaper. He says,
a newspaper?
Do you know how many talents there are out there? He can work in this circuit with Daniel Ricciardo, two clowns together. First drive fast, then humor.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay, first of all,
dude takes it seriously.
I don't even know what drives like a newspaper is, but that's going to be my new...
I don't know, but I love that phrase. He drives like a newspaper.
On the Beltway, I'm going to be like, get out of here, you newspaper. Like, that's great. I don't even know. I don't know what that means, drives like a newspaper, but that's great. I'm using that from now on. Maybe there should be like the Nico Hulkenberg Newspaper Award or something like that.
I'm sure it's slang. I just haven't heard it.
No, you got two bangers in this one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, first of all, I think social media begs to differ. And I love Bottas.
Well, they like Valtteri's butt.
Well, I don't know that I like his butt, but I love this Bottas versus Mercedes Bottas.
Yeah, that was the buttoned-up Bottas.
But I'm like, I like this guy. I like that he's here for the vibes. This seems more like who he is. Like, he's less George Russell now. I
like it because I feel like every time I look at his social media, I feel like I'm watching a Wes Anderson movie.
Exactly. So I'm like, I'm all for it. I mean, and he's at stick. I mean, what are you expecting? Of course he's going to drive like a newspaper. He's driving for stick.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like Minardi is much better, I mean, it's not like they're up there driving for Ferrari and McLaren and you're driving like a newspaper. You're two terrible mid-pack. I'll be nice. You're two mid-pack teams. What are you expecting?
Well, apparently this guy just doesn't like the jokey, ha-ha Daniel Ricciardo.
I mean, I get that. I'm sure that's not everybody's thing. I'm sure that a lot of people don't care for that as someone who is... invited to meetings because Grace is funny. I've definitely been at back in the before times when we used to do things all in person and I'd walk into a training and people are like, oh, good, Grace is here. What does that mean? Well, it'll at least be fun. Oh, okay. We're talking about appropriations law. I'm glad I'm here for the jokes. So, I think there's place for that and people like that. And in a sport that's 80% the car? I don't know what you're expecting from them.
Yeah, why not have a laugh or two along the way?
I think it's authentically them. I think if it was not authentically them, that would be different. And I don't know, whatever. But drives like a newspaper. That's great.
Yeah, that's my favorite now.
I'm taking it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about the news. But again, a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who have joined us tonight. Just to let you know, there's Gigi, Pete, Sammy, Glenn, Ian, Who else am I missing here? Steven, I know, is here. Melton is here, I know. I'm reading through the names. There's so many. I'm going to miss some folks, so sorry because I'm scrolling back. Some are a little more vocal than others, so I'm having to scroll a little way.
Oh, Can you just look at all the participants? There isn't a list of them?
Grace is here.
Oh, look at that. Oh, surprise.
Grace made it. I'm so good. Dave is here. Yeah, everybody's here. Everybody's here. So it's great to have you all. I love it. It's an added element, but I love because I'm doing the show, but I also like seeing everybody's comments along with the topics that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You guys are the best. There's some funny comments and some insightful comments there. So thanks for sharing that. So if you would like to join us as an audience member, you can do that by just simply becoming a Patreon supporter like these awesome people have, because they get the plot and they're awesome. And we thank them, and we're grateful for their support. If you like the podcast, you can go to your favorite podcast player, give us some love, give us a good rating over there. Go tell all your friends about it. It's amazing. I was just telling the patrons before we started recording, I was in a Facebook group for the recording software that we use for the podcast, and they were talking about how to have a successful podcast, and they had some really interesting stats about the hundreds of thousands of podcasts. When you really boil it down, most of them all die after, a handful of episodes, 4, 5, 6, 8 episodes, and then they die, and nobody continues it. And they were talking about all of these ways to continue your podcast and stick to it. And there was lots of people celebrating their 25th episode, their 40th episode, their 18th episode, maybe their, 50 some odd episode. And I said, well, we're getting ready to celebrate our 891. And as soon as I said that whole forum was like, they were judging. They were like, dude, get a life.
They're not even
891.
They're not even old enough to have that many podcasts. They haven't lived 891 weeks, And
we're not, we're just one F1 podcast. There's a few out here with more episodes than we have. And
no, that's for sure.
Awesome. They're doing great. They have been. They have been as long as we have, longer than we have. So awesome.
I think it's true, though. That would be, there's definitely that early, you lose that enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's like we're talking about. You need a little whack for your podcast, and then you can come back and keep it going.
Sometimes there's a lot of Dan Ricciardo's of podcasting out there.
I just think, it's easy. And then life happens. I mean, I think that's the other thing, too. It's really easy to, especially since, this is a labor of love. So it's real easy to, not want to do it, to find other things to do.
Yeah, life
happens,
you said, it gets
right?
in the way, you start off podcasting, then you get married to a Corvette fan.
I know, right? Nobody's perfect. No,
I know. And it's time change. But we do this because we love it.
We do. It's fun.
And that's why we do it. It's not because we're making money. We don't do that. But it's that's why I always say we couldn't and wouldn't do the podcast without our Patreon supporters like all of you joining tonight, because it's just trying to break even. So anyway, thank you so much for all of your support, and spread the word. We really appreciate it. We'll be back. I've got 3 races in a row, and I need to check with Paul because it seems like before the season started, this may have been the time frame-ish, because I know he's going crazy. He's going to go... He's right back from Law, then right up this weekend to the Glen, then he's back over to Spa, then he's back over to the U.S., and this may be the 3-race stint that he may have to sit out or race review, but who knows? Fingers crossed we get him, but I will check with him and make sure. And if he's not, here's the good news. You get to hear Grace and her hot takes on the race, which is always fun.
I actually have to take notes because, as we can see, I can't even remember from week to week what we did, let alone...
Right.
I just watched that race yesterday, and I don't remember what happened.
Right, so it'll be great. So anyway, all right. Until next week, when we come back to do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
It's not what I feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.